Computer. Hello and welcome to the Inspire View series. My name is Cherrise Boucher and I am a momentum strategy coach who works with people to help them get their ideas out of their heads and into action. Today, I'm going to introduce you to another amazing woman. That's all that I talk to, apparently, because everybody is amazing. But my inspiration, actually, let me share that in case you haven't watched any other of the series interviews. The inspiration for the Inspire View series came to me a couple years ago when I just really wanted to connect with other women to share their stories about how they've followed their hearts to do what they do. Because sometimes we all need that little motivation that if, she could do it, I can do it. So I have inspired myself along the way by connecting with women from all over the world. It's been so awesome because someday I have every intention of meeting all of them. And that means I just have friends sprinkled across the world. Yeah. And it gives me a great opportunity to learn what people do so that I can refer them should the opportunity come up. And that's what I love to do. So anyway, today, as you can see, I have my lovely guest, Sage Hobbs, and I'm so excited that she's here. She is an author, coach, and speaker who is known for her direct, insightful, and compassionate approach to communication, relationships, and personal growth. She's worked with individuals and groups for more than 15 years to both transform their relationships and increase their personal fulfillment. She's been a student of transformational work all her life, literally, and we'll touch on that, and brings her enthusiasm, wisdom, and relentless optimism to everything she does. Prior to creating her current work on naked communication, which sounds intriguing, Sage received her bachelor's degree from the University of Pennsylvania, her master's degree from the University of Colorado, Denver, and spent a decade working with teens and families to navigate the wild path of growing up. And if you have children, you understand that. She's also a mom of two, so she's getting to experience it firsthand. A cancer survivor, a proud teacher's wife, a retired school counselor, a world traveler, and a book lover. Me too. Yeah. You can often find her dancing in her kitchen, cleaning up a kid's mess while cursing under her breath. We've all been there. Playing on her yoga mat, lifting her face toward the sun for a hit of happiness, or on the phone dishing out her real and loving guidance to one of the many women in her world. So welcome, Sage. That was a nice, with my little interjections of your stuff, because I think we all have a lot in common when we really get in there. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited to talk to you, Cherrise, and all of your wonderful, amazing women to be a part of this community. I've watched several of your interviews and it's really cool what we've been doing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's, a guilty pleasure.
Hey, if you need something, find it for yourself, right? Inspiration.
Right. I love it. It actually, like doing this, whenever I record an interview, I am like on this high for like the rest of the day, because it's just so fulfilling, I guess, to find something that you like to do, whether you get paid for it or not. Yeah. I think including those things into your life are crazy important.
Me too. It's super energizing.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit. You're an author. You just recently finished your book and published your book. So I want to talk a little bit about how you got from where you were to where you are, and your perspective on things. We touched on that a little bit when we spoke before, and I really like your outlook on that.
Sure. So, it's always the big question, right? Like, how did you get to be where you are? And it starts when you're about 2.
Yeah.
Things start to happen.
So I was born.
Yeah. So I was born, exactly. Thank you, Mom and Dad, right? And from there, 8,000 million moments happened that form who we are.
Right. Good, bad, and everything in between.
Totally. And mostly things happen and we decide what they mean, right? Yeah. So, and you can have families where the siblings have the exact same experience. Mom and dad get divorced, or a pet dies, and brother completely interprets it this way and sister completely interprets it that way. And they both go on their trajectories in life with different realities that shape the decisions they make, which I find profoundly fascinating and is part of the work I do. And really how I got to be here is unfolding pieces of that, peeling back the layers, getting more naked, which is what the book is really about, with what stuff gets in our way of really showing up authentically and honestly and real and raw with ourselves and with others. So, I mean, lots of things got me here, but there are 3 core events, I think, that I've drilled down to that got me right here, right now, which are when I think things happened in threes in this regard. So when I was 13 years old, appropriately kind of self-absorbed and a new teenager, my parents brought us into the living room, and I knew something was up because the living room was like this formal room in this really old big house we had. And I was like, what's going on here? And they said, we're getting divorced, or maybe they said separated, but I immediately made it mean divorced.
Right.
And, I was like, no, that happens to other people. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. You guys don't even fight. You know what I mean? Don't people get divorced if they're like screaming at each other and miserable? You guys are like go on vacations. This isn't making sense. Mm-hmm. And, in my own really child way, when you're 13, you're really still figuring things out. I was devastated. It felt like the rug got pulled out from my stability. Like the foundation was really rocked. And it was really one of the key lessons in like, oh, right, you really have to pay attention to your relationships and nurture them, or things can blow up, and the impact is really huge. Right. So that was like lesson number 1. And then if you fast forward until I'm 23, and some of you who are listening, if you've seen my work before, you may have heard some of these stories, but every time I have like a new awareness about them when I share them. I was 23 and I had graduated from college, and I'd gone off to Africa, which was really a lifelong dream. And I'd taught in Kenya for a few months, and I'd come back to Philly, where I was born and raised and where I'd gone to school. And I'd gotten like this awesome new job. I was totally going to save the world. I mean, I was working in inner city public schools. I thought I was going to transform urban education, no small undertaking, eradicate poverty and racism, And I figured I had all the time in the world to do that. And I'm sitting at my desk, much like I'm sitting here with you, and I'm sort of like, just going like this, maybe I'm rubbing my shoulder. And I feel this little lump above my collarbone, and I'm like, that's weird. And I kind of ignore it because I'm super healthy and I'm 23 and I'm like doing my thing. And a couple weeks goes by and it doesn't go away. And I go to the doctor, and she's like, do you have any other things going on? I'm like, well, it's funny you should say that. I'm like, my legs are itchy. I get sort of some hives sometimes. And I just been putting hydrocortisone cream, but my legs are really itchy. And she's like, oh, okay. I want you to go see the surgeon. And I'm like, surgeon? What are you talking about? She's like, yeah, well, surgeons deal with lumps and bumps, and it's just best. It's probably nothing, but I think you should go see the surgeon. And what happened from there was a whirlwind where I had a lymph node biopsy, and at 23 learned I had Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I went through chemotherapy and radiation. I lost my hair. I actually had my friend John shave my head before it all came out, because I was going to hold on to any fucking control I had. Right. And really feel, but it was, it was quite naked to be 23 and in like the kind of the prime of your sexuality and your, sensuality and your discovery and your independence, and literally be walking through the streets of Philadelphia with a bald head. And I had a birthday party. My family threw me a birthday party. I'm turning 24, and I'm like, yo, you don't throw birthday parties when you're 24 unless you have cancer. Like, that's why you're all here. Otherwise you do that when you're like 9, or 40, like
when you hit a milestone kind of age,
And so I was having a really hard time being with it. And my mom, and all of her infinite wisdom, like kind of leans in and is like, Sage, at the party, just let the love in. These people are here to love you. And it's a generous act for you to let them love you and support you.
Right.
And I was like, okay, lesson number 2. You really want to have a support crew when things don't go well, when things are hard, when life gets gritty, and it does, no matter what, for anyone, you will hit something. Mm-hmm. The people in your life are what matters most. And so I'll just go quickly to the next one because I know there's more to talk about. But the third was when I was 33, and I was a new mom. So every time there was like this new stage of my life. And I was a new mom. My son was, 1 year old. And I get a call from my dad in Philly. My dad is really one of the heroes of my life and a mentor, and just an unbelievable human being on this planet, the work that he did and who he was. And he's like, babe, I just wanted to know, I was at the Eagles game with your brother, and it was weird. I was having a little bit of a hard time walking up the stadium steps, and I'm sure it's fine, but I wanted you to know I'm going to go get it checked out and get some tests done. All right, Dad, cool. Just, let me know what you find out. Please tell me what happens. Don't keep it from me.
Right.
Okay, babe, I will. And sure enough, really quickly in the span of 5 months, my dad went from having traveled to 11 countries in the previous year as a transformational executive coach to paralyzed from the chest down and dead from a really insanely rare tumor in his spine.
Oh my gosh.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
And I was freaking out. I was really
those stories always just,
I know.
When you hear those, you're like, you're fine. I had an aunt that went through something similar. She kind of felt a little something, and then all of a sudden it was like, gone.
Just like done. Right.
Yeah.
I know. And so exactly that. It's like, it happens. Cancer has touched everybody's life. There's not a person listening to this right now who hasn't known someone or experienced themselves, probably. Mm-hmm. And if not yet, you will.
Sadly.
And so it's not like, oh, so special, and that was one of the coolest things about what happened with my dad, and where my third lesson was a lot of people get really, really miserable when they get an unexpected diagnosis, and they make it mean like they get angry at God or the universe, or they're like, why me? I'm a good person. I've had a good life. I've heard this over and over again.
Yeah.
And, I'm very fortunate to come from a family that really has some awareness around like things happen and we make it mean things. And so we can make it mean what we want to if we have that awareness. We can choose the interpretation we layer. And so my dad just goes, he was upset. He wasn't like, yay, I'm in a wheelchair and this sucks, but he was like, he's literally said, well, why not me? Of course. Why not me? This is the human experience. Like, the only certainty is that we all die. We end. That's how it ends, no matter what. So why not me? And he, instead of retreating and getting all like in his own sad, depressed, scared bubble, he was remarkable. He was a very, very smart man and very connected and been all over the world. And he started writing to all these people in his life, like huge emails to like hundreds of people saying, this is what's going on with me. And he was real and he was raw, and he was like telling the internal conversations of facing your own death and the life. He was sharing it. And what started to happen was people were like flooding the inbox with these letters to my dad that were like blowing my brother and my sister in my mind. And then in his final week, like they just started coming in to see him and holding his hand and telling story after story after story of how he'd impacted their life. And I was like, oh, okay, universe, here we go. I'm getting the message again. Like, all that freaking matters at the end of the day, at the literal end of the day, at the end of like your existence on this plane, is, did you deeply love, and were you deeply loved? And that's what people are looking for when they're facing the end. And so all of that like really got me to when I had my second kid, assessing my career, which was a great career as a school counselor and really being of service. It was a great career. And we can talk about, more about the leap of faith, but it was really like, okay, what do I want to create next? Because this isn't my forever thing. And I'm really clear that where my passion and my skill coincide is supporting people and having extraordinary relationships with themselves. Because it really has to, obviously this has to start.
Right.
Has to start here, and then with others. And that's what I've been doing always since I was a kid. I'd be like helping people stand up for themselves and solve problems with their girlfriends on the recess. Like I have always been doing that. And I just couldn't see what was right there to see until I decided. And from all of that, both my counseling degree and all my personal experiences, like came naked communication.
That's awesome. And what a story. And how because, okay, did you sit down and think about these parts of your life and the lesson learned, or was it just something you knew about? Because I'm sitting here while you're sharing this going, oh shit, maybe I should like go back and outline my life and figure out what lesson I learned at each part so that I could say it so eloquently. Instead of, oh, at this part, the shit hit the fan and I made this decision and then, you know.
Right. Well, you know, look, I've said it a few times by now, obviously, but yes, I think everybody should go back and look at their life and see when they made the decisions. I, no joke, think that we should. I mean, I can think of it all the way. You can go back. I have terrible memories. So some people can remember like really little stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not as good at that. But if I think really, really hard, like I can remember the worst thing I ever did was my girlfriend, my best friend from childhood. She was much more of a rebel than I ever was. She continued to be. And we're still friends since kindergarten. And when we were like maybe 7, we hated this neighbor down the street. And she was like an avid gardener. And my girlfriend's like, I don't think I've ever said this on an interview. This is the worst thing I ever did. And like in my memory, and that's what I decided, was let's pop the tops off all her flowers.
Oh.
And I was like, ooh. And she's like, come on, she's such a bee. And I'm like, okay. And so we decapitated like, I don't know, like dozens of her flowers.
Goodness.
And we totally got caught.
Yeah.
And I was mortified, you know, and my mom, I mean, you know, my mom, being a mom, you're a mom, Cherrise, like you feel like you screw it up like 100 times a day. I do. I'll speak for myself. I'm like, maybe something else for therapy, babe. Sorry. I'll help you pay for it. But there's so many good things that you make that you hopefully outshine, right? So my mom was wise and she said, you're going to walk over there and take responsibility and apologize right to her face. And I was like, oh my God, like, no. I swear my memory, it's like she almost had to physically push me to the neighbor's door. And I was literally like, I don't know. I have no like memory of that moment of standing face to face, but I know I was like, I'm so sorry. You know, I'm sure I couldn't look at her. And like in that moment, it was like, I'm a good girl. Like, I don't want to get in trouble like that again. You know, like, so then I had to unpeel that. So yes, to your answer, you can go back and there are 1,000 times somebody yelled at you and, you know, you stood up for yourself and you're like, oh, that felt good. I'm not going to let people push me around. Like a million things, you know? So, and then if you share yourself in the world more, which I think women all need to do more of. Yeah. It's easier to tell your story.
Right.
And then it comes more eloquent, maybe. I don't know. Thank you for the compliment.
Yes, very eloquent. With your 3 lessons in 30 years, kind of an outline.
Well, I had to drill it down because there's like a lesson every day. I get schooled every damn day. I drop my kids. I mean, I got schooled this morning by my kid who wouldn't want to go to school. And I'm like, patience, you know? Yeah. So I just go for the 3 nuggets that I feel like tied particular thread together.
Well, I love that. It sounds wonderful. Of course, you know, as a speaker, I'm sure you have that fine-tuned bit too. So
always working on it.
Yes, always working.
Nothing is ever like arrived, at least in my world. So maybe somebody out there has figured that out. I don't know, Tony Robbins, Oprah, maybe.
No, I don't even think so. I think it's all, one of my friends worked with Oprah for 17 years. So she's got her own experiences and stories on that side of it, which are fabulous for sure.
Yeah. Right. I'm sure.
So, nobody starts at the top.
Right. So, of course. Oh my gosh. I know.
Which I love to remember and remind myself of frequently. And then when I'm reminding myself, like you said, you recently saw my post about stop doing the comparison thing.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I figure if it's popped into my head, like, Cherrise, stop doing this thing, you know, whatever it is, whether it's comparing or downplaying something or
belittling,
something like that. Whatever it is, I've kind of come around to sharing that, because if I thought it, somebody else did too. And it's
100%.
It's funny that when you start people seeing liking that, or, oh my God, I needed this right now, or something like that, you know that take that inspiration and share it with other people, because I think when we do that, we inspire others, and then we see that we're not alone. And that's like where your support group, which you were talking about, having a support group comes in, is that you can go so much further and you can overcome so many things when you find those people who you can support and who support you.
1000%. I mean, honestly too, it's just not that much fun alone.
No.
You know what I mean? Like,
who are you going to bitch to if you're by yourself?
But like, it's just not as much fun.
No.
And you miss out on the richness that relationships bring to you. And I'm sure if you are, I mean, you can be an introvert, you can fuel yourself with quiet time, that's fine. But those who really are not in relationship, and I don't mean just romantic relationships, I mean like friends and colleagues and with your siblings, you know, your neighbors, like it's usually because we're absolutely terrified of getting hurt.
Yeah.
Again, or we don't feel worthy or deserving of that kind of reciprocal kindness. And that's bullshit. You know, it's just old stuff. It's totally, that's old stuff, because we all were born. If you have a baby, you've had babies, right? Or you go someplace where there is babies. At this event that I was at this weekend, there were 2 little teeny babies who came to the event.
I know.
And everybody
brought hers.
I know. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And girl, Shayna can dance. She was somebody else had one baby. I'm going to get my groove on. I was like, girl. But babies make you feel like, oh, like pure love, pure possibility, pure potential.
Yeah.
And that's where we all began.
Yeah.
So any of the things that hold us back from our human connections are, you know, are stuff that happened once we started living, because we didn't come out like worried about what people were thinking of us. Like, no, we came out like ready to rock and you just take care of my basic needs, please. Yep. And like, let me figure this out. So that you're absolutely right. Like that's how that's how you start to cultivate a community, a good community, like of people who truly see you for bigger than you see yourself.
Yeah. And that's important because I do have friends that do that for me. And I still sit there and go,
deflecting, right?
Whatever. Everybody can do this, you know, or something like that. Right. It's that everybody, you could do this. Anybody could do this. And they're like, Cherrise,
take the compliment, like let it in.
I know. So I catch myself. I mean, that's been a practice thing too, you know. I talk a lot about awareness, personal awareness, and catching yourself and doing things to minimize the effects of what your brain will like to pop into your head, you know, with negative thoughts and things like that. And so I catch myself and just, you know, thank you was a big thing. I even shared with somebody else, we were having a conversation once in a group, and she had a hard time accepting compliments. And I said, okay, I know, I've been there, right? I've been there. Yeah. And here's what you do. I said, this is really simple. Just be aware of it. Next time somebody gives you a compliment, say thank you, and that's it.
And close your mouth. Right.
Shut your mouth. And even because I know what you're going to be thinking, you know, that's a nice shirt. Thank you. But, you know, I got this like ages ago. Or
I got it for $9.99.
I got this at the clearance rack at Goodwill. I just picked it, you know, things like that. That's what's going to come in your head. Or someone says, you look really nice today. You look really like you're glowing or something. I got like 2 hours sleep, you know, it's just coffee. Right. You know, it's excuses that people want to downplay the compliment. So
and really
thank you and
themselves.
Right. They say thank you and shut up.
Right.
Thank you and all smile. Don't put a frown on your face. Smile.
Right. Try and smile.
Thank you and smile. And I swear it gets easier to do it, you know, when you're aware of it and you're practicing doing that. Just
absolutely.
Probably somebody will go, thank you, shut up. You know, practicing it. But I think that's a great little tool to help yourself and your relationships with people, because they don't, you know, if you give somebody a compliment, you don't want to hear their excuses of why your compliment wasn't valid. You just want them to accept the compliment.
Absolutely. And my husband has retaught me this again and again. So first of all, this could take us on a whole nother tangent we don't have to go down, but this is mostly, this is often a woman thing. Women struggle with it more than men, which I know, like all gender stereotypes, and working in the schools, I've worked with a wide spectrum of, gender and sexual identity. And I totally respect that it's not always linear, but it's much more often than not women who struggle to really receive their value and their worth. And it shows up again and again in research around how much women are willing to charge, if that's connected to worth in a capitalist society, or when they're willing to throw their name in a hat to apply. They won't apply for a position. Women don't apply for a position unless they tick like 98% of the qualification boxes. Right. Because they don't think they're qualified enough. And men, if they get 50%, they're like, oh, I'm totally worthy of a shot. And they throw themselves in. I thought that was in like the Harvard Business.
I think I read that.
So fascinating, right? Yeah. Like, and so my husband will say like beautiful things to me, and I've gotten so much better, but I think I would be like, come on, babe, really? Like I look like crap right now. And then he's like, that's so annoying. You want me to tell you that you're beautiful because I think that you are. And then when I do, you negate my effort. So why would I want to keep telling you? And I'm like, damn, you're so right. And why I married a wise man. But he's just like, if you want to hear it, like, then you have to trust, because it makes me feel like you think I'm lying. That's, like that I'm lying, that I think you look adorable right now in your sweatpants. I think you look adorable right now in your sweatpants. Can you just like give me my experience? That's my experience.
Right.
And it's like, oh yeah. So it's not even just being humble. It's actually sort of like slamming and shutting out somebody who's trying to share with you.
It is. How selfish is that?
How selfish is that?
So selfish.
Just say thank you.
Yeah.
Advice.
That's right. Just shut up.
Right. Just shut up.
So I want to talk a little bit about your book and how that wraps into how you work with people and how you speak about it to inspire people and all that, whatever road we go down here.
Sure,
but so share about your book and exactly what I said, like how this all incorporates into what you do and how it inspires.
Okay, great. So my book, I love books, as you said you do. And I think
that's a whole bunch. They're stacked.
I know, I see them right behind you.
That's just some of them.
Right. And I've really always wanted to write a book. I like, for as long as I can, for a long time now, I've wanted to write a book. And it was always like, what am I going to write a book on? Actually, it wasn't even what I'm going to write a book on. That's totally a lie. It was like not even a reality that I would write a book. It was just like, oh, wouldn't it be cool? Yeah. And then in some of your interviews and in conversations you and I've had, talked about leap of faith and momentum and just taking steps. And I got to a place where I was like, no, it's actually time to write the book. And I started just sort of assessing like, what area do I want to write on? And I actually had several ideas, and I think I'll probably write more books. But somebody said to me, it came to me a few different ways, well, what is it that you most naturally do that people have always come to you for, like friends, clients, family, colleagues? Like, what is it that is just the skin you're in and you can't really see it? Well, and that was where it was like, people want awesome relationships, and the path to awesome relationships is communication, right? That's actually how you get there. Like, you don't just woo your way into extraordinary relationships. Like relationships come through verbal, nonverbal communication, and that's how you get to know people, and that's how you feel intimacy. And so it became really abundantly clear, like, that's the deal. And then it was like looking over, feedback from clients and such over and over again. I'm told, you're so honest, like your honesty and your realness is what attracted me to you, because I kind of want to be like that, and I'm like, oh gosh, I've always just thought I was blunt and I needed to, kind of like temper myself. Sometimes I've had that story. And then it was like, no, that's actually an asset. Like, people are longing to be more real. They want to show up as who they are, and they want to be reminded of who they are for themselves, because often after you've had children and such, you kind of lose this connection with your true like essence. Yeah. And so they come looking for, well, who the hell am I anyway? How do I love that person in this body and in this stage of life? And then how do I like create that? How do I show that? Ooh, that sounds scary. Like, how do I show that to people for real?
Yeah.
And so naked communication like came out in a wood. Like as soon as I decided, it was like outline, blah, blah, blah. And then I took a crazy 5,000-mile road trip with my 2 kids who are 7 and 3 last summer, and my husband, because we might be crazy, but it was great. And almost every morning.
Are we there yet? Are we there?
We're not doing, we've done it 4 times in the summer. No. So, but I got up before everybody else every morning, like in that quiet.
It's my favorite time.
Yeah. And I just wrote, and sometimes I walked and talked it on the beach or in the neighborhood, wherever we were in the road trip. And I got really clear, like that a book is an inroads for people around the world to have access to transformation and growth. That, you know, I live in a place in Boulder, Colorado, and I grew up in a cosmopolitan Philadelphia with my parents who had been really involved in transformational and personal development work. I had access, but people are all over the world who don't have that degree of proximity access.
Right.
And so this is my book, my beautiful book. And it gives people access to the beginning or the deeper stages of how do you love yourself again, despite fear, despite self-doubt, and how do you courageously ask for what you want and what you need? How do you handle conflicts with more grace and ease? And how do you show up as you? And I work individually and in groups with women to transform their relationship with themselves and with others in a really meaningful way by practicing and taking action. Because you can't just, I think inspiration plus action is what gets you the outcomes you want.
Yeah.
Inspiration feels so good. It's like an emotional orgasm. You're like, oh yeah, I'm so inspired.
Oh, I know.
You know, but like if you don't bring in some action, and that's where coaching is so powerful, you don't get where you want to go. And that's the point. Like this isn't just for me to feed my ego. Like the point is you see results. And so speaking on the stage, different places, and I just was at an event this weekend. I do some events here in my town, and leveraging that more and broader with podcasts and interviews like this. And my website has more information, and it also has free chapters of the book.
Yes, which is what I'll have a link to that too on my website.
Yes.
And it'll be easy to click and go to access.
Awesome. Thank you for doing that. Yeah. And I think, you know, sometimes people want to taste it before they see if they want the whole thing, you know?
Yeah.
And then in everything in life, you can't do that as much, but with this, you can really start your naked communication journey by just grabbing the free chapters and seeing, like, does this resonate with me?
Right. And is it available both Kindle or ebook and paperback? It's on Amazon.
And my name has there's a middle initial B, sagebhobbs.com, which if you don't put that, you won't find it, but that's where Cherrise will put the link.
Yeah.
And you can also just write on, naked communication is a pretty memorable name. Yeah. I give my husband credit for it. He thought of it somewhere in the middle of like cornfield, Iowa or something. I don't remember. He's like, that's what this is about. It's about like you, and you're edgy and you're real and naked. Yeah. All the metaphorical layers you have to pull off to show up. And it's on Amazon, just like, so naked communication on Amazon, you'll see there's awesome reviews. I'm super humbled every time I see new reviews. And it's a great inroads into this journey for yourself.
So really is your main focus, like at the beginning, say you're working with somebody one-on-one, say they want a better relationship with their spouse, something. Do you start with them first? Because personally, I feel you have to start at ground zero, which is you. And I did that a little bit myself a few years ago, just to figure out, like, what do I like? What do I want to do? You know, I don't want to explain where I'm going or anything like that for a while. So I took a break from relationships and stuff, you know, to just do what I want to do and figure out who I was a little bit more, you know, within the realms of having 2 children. That, you know, it's not like I can just go travel around and go.
You didn't go sit in
Bali
Bali and like meditate for 4 years.
Shit, I would love to do that though. But no. But I think it's important to point that out too. You know, that you don't have to go on some month-long retreat somewhere in another country to figure yourself out.
You absolutely don't. You absolutely don't. I think actually the biggest lessons are when you're in the thick of life, you know, and you have to navigate thickness of life.
Right.
If you can step out sometimes, like I'm actually going to start running some women's retreats. I hope this year is my dream, but like if you can step out of your normal environment every now and then and have some quiet, I think that's powerful, but your normal environment is here to teach you like life lessons. Right. So no, I agree with you 100%. And to answer your question, do I start with them? I weave it in because honestly, there's,
you don't want to point the finger and go, let's start with you. What's your problem?
Right. You know, like people hire, like I have been hired for people who are, their marriages are on the rocks.
Yeah.
And I'm always clear. Look, I am not the marriage whisperer. If I were, I'd be like a bajillionaire because you'd be like, oh, you can fix my marriage. However, I believe that it's not even my job to do that because it's you who's in the marriage deciding whether or not you want to stay. Right. My job is to help you feel 1,000% clear and confident and courageous in whatever unfolds in that marriage, and to give you all the tools I can so you can navigate that for yourself with more courage and grace. Right. And that's how it has turned out with these various clients. And some have stayed and some have not, and both have felt strong in that. So you have to listen first a bit, like what, you know, if they hire me because that's what's most prominent for them, like it's right here.
Right.
I have to like look at that a little bit. And then as you look at that, there's no way you're not looking at their personal responsibility in the matter, what conversations they're bringing with them, how they're approaching. I mean, it's amazing. They'll laugh sometimes, be like, oh my gosh, I'm a totally nagging, annoying lady. Like, when did I become that? Right? It's like, when did that become? He didn't even marry that woman. The woman I'm being now isn't who he chose. So like, oh, right. Like there's some stake in the matter, you know?
Right.
So I think I don't think things are as linear, and I don't think things are quite as compartmentalized.
Right.
But yes, it's 100% covered, because it's like, well, when did that start happening for you? Like, when did you start being that way? You know, or how does that working for you?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, because a lot of people taking ownership of, you know, it's a tough thing to do sometimes, you know, taking ownership of choices that you've made or actions that you've taken. And it's easier sometimes to blame someone else, but when you really take a look at it, you're like,
oh crap. I was there too.
Yeah,
you know?
that was me too. It wasn't all just a one-sided thing, and I chose what I chose. And
right.
Yeah.
And it's not to beat yourself up, and it's not that you were deserving of what came to you, and it's not that other people don't make bad choices to have affairs or to be abusive, or, I mean, I'm not saying like it's 100% you either. It's just to look at the only person you can control is you.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
Yeah.
So let's start where the power lies.
Yeah.
You know, because there's a ton of power there, and you don't want to repeat patterns, and you want to be able to stand up for yourself if you need to, and, you know, all of that. So yeah, and it's the hardest thing. People really, I can get them there pretty quickly. I think that's sort of my drilled down, like, honest and loving combo, but, you know, it's not always pretty to embrace your own stuff.
No,
you know?
it's not, but pretty. That's where the awareness comes in, so that when you catch yourself doing this thing that's going to put you back into a cycle of repeating patterns, you can see it and stop it and make a different choice. It's where the power and the magic lie. Yeah. The power and the magic is right there within you. Important work, my darling. Thank you, Cherrise. It really is. It really is. Yeah. It really is. And I'm still doing it all myself, right along with everyone, just so you know. Oh, like, yeah. We're never there. We're never done. We're never to that highest point of whatever. We're always still doing work, because as soon as you've got one thing figured out, something else pops up. Yeah. And if you're in relationships, which I'm deeply committed to having awesome friendships, and, you know, and I keep bringing more people into my world because I love human beings, like, I'm going to get my feelings hurt. Yeah. I'm going to be triggered. I'm going to be angry. I'm going to feel impatient. I mean, if I choose to live in the messiness of human relationships, which I choose, then, I mean, hopefully I get out of it quicker and quicker and quicker, but I'm not, you know,
my mother, I mean, I've always, the longest relationship I've ever had is with my mom. I love the woman dearly. She's taught me a ton. I had her move nearby across the country, and like, oh my gosh, I'll find myself, I'll be like, dude, you're acting like you're 14. Like what just came out of your mouth, you know? And I got to clean it up because somehow I got triggered back to like old behaviors because she did that one little thing, you know? Right. I mean, you do get mastery and you do get a different level of like expertise and finesse, but it's human. It's a human experience.
We're human. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Unless we live in a cave all by ourselves, right, stuff comes up.
Then you're just battling with your own mind, which honestly,
that's not a pretty picture. Yeah, that would be even worse.
Me in a cave, terrible.
Would be talking to what was
Wilson.
it? A volleyball? Yeah,
Wilson.
I was trying to remember which kind of ball it was. You know? Like, yeah.
I think that's what it was.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah,
we're on the same page. So
yeah, totally.
We got that. Well. Fabulous. So what I do is everything, all my interviews and the little bios and links and everything go right there on my website. So it's easy for everybody to find and click away. I also have a YouTube channel, so things are there, but then you have to do a little extra work with the clicking part to get where you want to go. But if you go to CherriseBoucher.com/the Inspire View Series 2017, you'll be able to find Sage's interview along with the other ladies that I've interviewed so far this year. Yay. And click away, be happy, get your free chapters to have a little tasting of what's in there, and then just buy the book, or get the book.
Just buy the book.
You know, just buy the book, because
you know you want this, and
you know you do. Why stop? Why stop at like one chapter? And then I like the physical books. So, you know, if I teased myself with a sample, which would come via, you know, email or a PDF or however that, you know, does the thing on the ebooks and stuff, then I'd be like, now I have to wait for this book
the paper one to back. That's funny. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. So just buy the book. And then have your whole collection of stuff like I do that you never want to get rid of, just because I love books. You know, I've got to weed through a couple that I probably will never read again and donate them to Goodwill.
And then they get repurposed and somebody else's life gets touched. So that's the good thing about letting them recirculate.
Yeah.
You know?
Some I read again though, because I don't retain everything.
Of course. Right.
So,
cool.
you know, I've done that before. I'm like, God, I really do love that. I knew I loved this book, and I just read it again. But every time you read things, whether it's fiction, which I love and adore,
me too,
or it's self-help or some sort of insightful book that then gives you not the kind of thing to read at night before you go to bed, because then you're going to have ideas and it's going to get you fired up. And that's not the time for that. So,
right.
But every time you read again, you find different nuggets of things depending on where you are in your life, I think. So I think there's value in rereading everything because of that. Because I have done that and picked out different things because of where I am now compared to where I read something before. Could have been several years ago where I was at a totally different place in my life.
Right.
I didn't catch these little nuances that were in the book. So
yeah, I agree.
That's why I love the paper books, because you can look and see and like, oh, let me pick that up again. As opposed
I do. And I love, for nonfiction, I love paper because I want to go back. I want to like go back and bullet point. Like there's like, you know, in the Naked Communication, there's actually some sort of scripts or strategies for how to make direct requests. For example, I've had people ask me that all the time, like, well, how do I actually ask my boss that? Like, and you know, so those kinds of things I like to be able to return to more easily. And I often find it hard to find them in my Kindle. I do read novels on Kindle because it's backlit, and I love the fact that I don't have a light on.
Right. True.
But anyways, but I do love, for nonfiction, I want to be able to return to, I want to be able to return to the pieces that inspired me or that I wanted to use more quickly.
I do that. I put like the little small sticky notes. Sometimes.
Oh yeah, you're serious about it. Yeah.
I put stuff there. I dog ear them, you know, so it's easy to flip back to see what I wanted to go back to. Yeah.
Great.
All right.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to connect with you.
Thank you. And I hope to connect again in the future. If things come up, we can do this again.
Sounds great.
Thank you.